Hey guys, it's Lazar. I'm going to do this in one take because you guys did your Toke Talks in one take, and I think it wouldn't be fair for me to polish mine more than yours. I wanted to release these Toke Talks to you before your goodbye Group B party. I think that it'll be good conversation, and I hope that you all learn something about each other. From the bottom of my heart, and for all the awesome memories this summer, thank you, thank you, thank you. Now let's get to the first Toke Talk, which started off this whole project. Aditya, I heard from a friend that you like some types of fruit. Can you talk a little bit about the fruit you were eating earlier today, and which one was your favorite?
Yeah, sure. So let's see, today I've had a banana, a mango, and some blueberries, probably some cherries later. Of those, probably mango's the best. Reminds me of, I don't know, reminds me of when I was younger. Very nostalgic. In seventh grade, this was back when my dad used to travel a lot. So, and my brother also used to be like in a boarding school type situation. So when we were all home, my mom used to get some mangoes, like 5 or 6, and just cut them up for all of us. And yeah, that's the first time I had mangoes like in any non-trivial amount. And whenever I have mango, it just reminds me of that.
Is there any other warm experience you have that's related to like something you consume or use daily?
So maybe not daily, but I know for oranges, clementines really, around the same time, except this was usually when my brother and my dad were away from home. It was really just my mom and I at home. My mom came back pretty late from work. So my mom got clementines and almonds. Those were basically my favorite snack back then. It was really nice.
That reminds me of how I got into reading, and really? How whenever my mom, she rarely went on trips, but when she would, she'd always come back with a new book for me to read from wherever she was. And she ended up staying, I like the Harry Potter series. She ended up staying all night till the midnight premiere to get me a copy of the newest one, the last book.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, I can relate to how it's odd the affinities we can get attached to certain objects just based on, experiences we had when we were younger with them.
Yeah. I mean, back then, no way did I ever think that I'd be thinking about those times with my family just by eating food.
Well, Aditya, you've officially made me hungry right before my bedtime.
Awesome, man.
Toke Talk number 2. Ali, what's one trait or characteristic that not many people know about you that you think is pretty central to who you are?
I'm in love with coffee. Not like, oh, I need the caffeine when I grow up and I'm going to retire at like age 50. I'm just going to start my own coffee shop. It's a dream of mine.
What do you love about the coffee? Is it the experience with others?
The taste and how so much happens around a cup of coffee. It could be you working on something. It could be meeting a first date or hanging out with friends or just having a nice relaxed morning. And there's just so many things that are central around this one cup of coffee. And there's so many things about the cup of coffee, like getting the acidity just right, or regions of where the coffee comes from and how it's roasted, and just I love coffee, man. Have you thought about making your own brand of coffee now? I've thought about that, but it's not really where I want to be right now in my life. I have a very long, well thought out life plan, and maybe it's not, but it's just kind of the outline of oh yeah, these would all be cool if that happens. And that's in there around age 50. But if I started the coffee shop now, I feel like I wouldn't be fulfilled in my professional career, because I do have a passion for coding as well. And I do have a passion for being in tech and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily what I see myself doing now, but it's something that I see myself doing eventually. What's your favorite type of coffee? Or what's your favorite brand of coffee? I don't necessarily have a favorite brand. Most of my favorite coffees come from the Guatemala region. And it's kind of a light to medium roast with a high acidity. Any questions you have for me concerning this or anything else? This is your golden ticket. My golden ticket? Yeah, to the chocolate factory. I don't know. Chocolate factory. Do you like white, dark, or milk chocolate? I think hot chocolate. Option 4. I have so many questions, but none of them... What? What? Are you going to make your hot chocolate with dark or milk chocolate? Milk chocolate. Okay, there we go. Toke Talk number 3. Bill, what is a cherished childhood memory of yours?
Getting my dog was a big one. I fucking love my dog, dude. My sister had been begging for a dog for a long fucking time. I was sort of indifferent as a kid. But, you know, my dad grew up with one. I thought it would be cool. And my parents eventually decided, like, it might be a cool thing to do. My dad fucking loved dogs. My mom never had one. But everyone else in the family wanted one. So my parents would be like, hey, you want to go to a Shake-a-Paw today? That's the name of the store. And we would go and we wouldn't get anything. My parents were just teasing us, basically. And they did for like a year. They just, like, every so often, like every other month or whatever, they'd be like, hey, you want to hit the Shake-a-Paw, play with the dogs? And we'd be like, yeah, why not? My sister would beg. You can like pick a dog out and you can take it to the play area and shit like that. And my mom really took a liking to one dog. So we got her, and her name is Sparkle. Funny story about that. It's a goofy-ass name. I actually named her. I had it so fixated in my head that if I had a boy dog, it would be Sparky. But if I had a girl dog, it'd be Sparkle, because, you know, they had to match, of course. And so she was a girl, so we named her Sparkle. To this day, my dad resents the shit out of me for that, because it's like, it's so stupid. When the dog takes a shit in the house, right, or whatever, and you have to be angry, it's like you're being angry, but you're like, Sparkle! And it's just so, like, it's such a ridiculous thing to have to yell. Getting her was awesome. Me and my sister, we didn't do a whole lot in terms of training and shit like that, but bringing her home was a lot of fun. We got to play around with her, and like to this day, like I fucking love my dog so much.
What breed was your dog?
She's a cocker. She was just half poodle, half cocker spaniel. Honestly, she looks a lot like a toy poodle, just a little bit bigger. She's really dark brown fur with a white patch on her chest. She's like a white mustache, almost, sort of thing. Yeah, she's fucking adorable.
Do you sometimes feel like you like dogs better than humans?
I was actually thinking that about my dog when I last saw her, because they're such simple animals. My dog will just come into my room and she'll just hop on my bed. My desk is right next to my bed, and she'll just paw the back of my chair to like get me to play with her or whatever. And she just loves me so unconditionally. Like I could literally do anything and she wouldn't give a fuck. I mean, how can you not love the shit out of that kind of animal that just blindly loves you? It's great.
Toke Talk number 4. Ethan, what was the first time you started coding, and what was it for?
Actually, I didn't start any coding until I entered college. The first program was the class project I did. So I made a local restaurant recommendation. Has nothing to do with machine learning and AI sort of thing. Just study list of restaurants. I found it quite joyful because it was a fun and engaging experience doing teamwork, writing code together. Shamefully, we were using a USB drive to sync the files and do the version control. that was also fun.
Do you prefer working in a team or as an individual?
Definitely in a team. When you do a job with a team, you are not only coding, but also just having fun with each other. And whenever anyone got stuck, can get unstuck really quick, be quicker with the help of teammates.
What were some of the ways you made friends? Because I know a lot of people when they're younger, they end up making their friends through sports and stuff.
Although I'm not good at sports, I do participate in sports.
Which ones?
Basketballs in the high school, there are actually 2 teams. One is more competitive, and the other one is more relaxing and not so competitive. So I usually took part in the second group. And besides actually doing sports, I also chat with friends about the sport news. Like in high school, we have a circle of fans of tennis. Actually, before that, I knew nothing about tennis. After joining the group, made a lot of friends and also learned a little bit about tennis. That's how I get to make new friends.
Toke Talk number 5, Ishani. What is Camp Kesem?
It's a summer camp for kids whose parents have cancer.
What's your involvement at Camp Kesem?
I'm going to be a counselor for the group of 7 to 9-year-olds.
Why do you want to be a counselor at Camp Kesem?
Mainly for the kids. They've been through so much.
How do you grapple with the suffering of children? How does that fit into your worldview, spiritually, emotionally?
I've always just felt more in touch with the childish part of myself than I am ever in touch with the adult part. I think like in a lot of ways, I still am a kid and can easily put myself in their situations because I still feel so young, not in a necessarily youthful way, but in an innocent way.
Why do you still feel young? And is it something that you appreciate, or is it a part of yourself that you wish you could grow out of?
I'm stuck between teenagery years and adulthood and kind of in this weird limbo state. And I'm apprehensive of what adulthood really means and really want to hang on to my youth in some sort of way. There's nothing like it in terms of how you can make mistakes and how you can be reckless. And in some ways, I wish I wasn't like this. Even though it means more responsibility, it also means a lot of things that I personally am not ready to accept about the world yet. I'm trying to hold on to the kid side of me for as long as I can.
Is there any trait or activity you do to preserve that childish aspect of yourself?
A lot of my day-to-day actions are very childish. Like, they don't heed the opinions of what other people think. I'll dress how I want. I'll drink chocolate milk. I'll jump the stairs and jump in the elevator and dance around in public, even though it's not always the politically correct thing to do. The little things I do are ways of preserving my childhood and like the recklessness and abandonedness of it.
Have you ever had to go through some tough shit?
I'm in the middle of that right now. Tearing my ACL. My whole life has been soccer and dance ever since I was 2. And it's how I kept breathing throughout college. That would be the one thing I could always go back and do whenever I wasn't feeling well. At like 4 a.m, I'd go juggle or dance in my dorm room in the 2 feet of space I had. And everything would be okay after that. And now it's like one person says get surgery, one person says just do physical therapy. So it's this whole mess and it makes me let go of youth a lot because now things start hurting in my body, which is an old people problem. And I can't just jump the stairs because, oh wait, my knee is gone. And there are little things that I have to be careful about. I don't know, it's just harder for me to deal with than most people with ACL injuries. I don't know.
Toke Talk number 6. Jenny, what's a cherished childhood memory you have?
Kite flying with my parents. Back when I was little, I was really afraid of bugs and all different kind of insects. They were taking me out to the parks, and my dad would get one of those little lines that's attaching to some kind of insect so that I can touch it and then like take it with me, just getting me more comfortable with the nature. Also, like when I was little, I was really afraid of people touching me. And also, like, proximity-wise, it's usually pretty far away. And then, like, they would just start helping me overcome things like that. That's the best they can do because there are so many people in China. And then, like, sometimes you don't really get that many opportunities to go out on hikes and then go camping. Last year when they were here, we went to Olympic National Park and stayed at one of the camper log cabins. And it feels like my missing childhood is, like, coming back. I felt so happy.
How is your relationship with your parents?
I feel like I have this friend relationship with my parents, especially with my dad. Like, growing up, when you finish dinner, my dad would ask my mom to not put everything away yet. So you have your empty plates and then just sit there to talk for like 30 minutes. Talk about what happened at work or like at school. So I feel like really grateful that he did in that way because it's making me like more outspoken. I'm always like talking about my feelings, my needs, and the parts that I need help. Not a lot of people can really be that outspoken about that, especially under the Chinese culture. When you're really outspoken like that, it's not really a good thing because people can take it personally sometimes.
Do you have any stories of stepping on toes?
Yeah, even with my best friend who didn't come to the US for college, I traveled to Switzerland with one of my best friends in 2017. And then like for this entire time, I was really outspoken, but sometimes I noticed she is not in the mood. And I was like, what's wrong? And then she started blah, 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 talking about all of the things that happened in the past year. I'm like, why didn't you just tell me at that spot so that we can stop it and move on? And she's like, I just don't want to hurt feelings. I'm like, it's not hurting feelings. It's need to let it out and tell other people how you feel. That's what makes a relationship bounding. If it's your type of people, you bond deeper. If it's not your type of people, and you tell from the conversation. So I feel really lucky that my parents brought me up in that way. I was always encouraged to talk about my feelings and put myself or my health or my feelings first, and then start thinking about being harmonious with others.
Toke Talk number 7. Jesse,
what is a cherished childhood memory of yours?
I used to live in Maryland when I was younger, all the way until I was like 8 years old. And my family lived right on the Chesapeake Bay. So our backyard had like a little dock. I was obsessed with being in the water all the time. And we had this one friend who lived across the street. Her name was Kyber, and she was always over and playing with us. In the process of renovating after a hurricane hit our house, we decided to create a little beach. We made a mini town on the beach, and each of us owned our own portion of that town and had our own little duties and jobs. My brother was the banker, and our currency was in the form of sea glass. Every color of sea glass was a different dollar, depending on how common it was to find a certain color of sea glass. That's the value of that specific piece. So if you find a piece of large brown sea glass, that's worth fucking nothing because there's brown sea glass everywhere because that's just beer bottles. So that's $1 of sea glass. glass. But if you find a sleek, large piece of smooth, light blue sea glass, that is a find. So that's like 1,000, right? And then our friend Kyber was in charge of the restaurant, and there was only one thing that was served. It was peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. You can guess what they were made out of. It was basically just rocks with sand and jellyfish. And yes, she did get stung a few times trying to make these sandwiches. So she was in charge of the food in this city, a town full of starving and stung people. And I was left without a job, so I created my own small business owner. I was in charge of what I called the shish kebab shop. Basically, it's what you might call a beach thrift store. And I literally just collected garbage that came from the fucking Chesapeake Bay, and then I sold it for our lovely sea glass units. This could be anything from an old buoy to a washed up boot. I was the crazy one in the town, so maybe that's why I just had to collect everything I possibly could.
Toke Talk number 8. Lily, is there anything you fear that most people don't know about?
I think I fear dying and feeling unfulfilled.
Why?
I think it would feel like I hadn't taken the most advantage of the time that I have. Most of the reason why I fear that is because I have my standards set so high and yet also vague to really feel like I had done enough. I would have to feel like I improved the lives of a lot of people.
Where's that value come from? That desire to give away all this money that you just got? Why do that?
Okay, so whenever my parents first decided to start taking my siblings and me to church, they were going to raise me Unitarian Universalist, but the Unitarian Universalists did not have enough parking, so they raised us Christian instead. And so, yeah, that was the source of my religious beliefs for a while. So we went to this church. It was not a fundamentalist church at all. It was like the most like hippy dippy, like liberal Christian church you could find in Portland, Maine. But I ended up deeply religious from this for a little while. There was this verse that was something like, "It's harder for a rich man to get into heaven than for a camel to fit through the eye of a needle." When I read that, I wasn't like, oh, Jesus means like it's very hard for a rich person to go to heaven. I was like, how are you going to get a camel through the eye of a needle? So I thought about that for a long time. I was like, what would I do with this camel? I was like, okay, it's impossible. That is just so hard. I was like, shoot, yeah, I should like care about other people or like be philanthropic. It just sort of became ingrained in me around an impressionable time. In high school, I joined the debate team, started reading about utilitarianism, that sort of thing. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's pretty much what I believe. And so I think I ended up being a utilitarian eventually, just trying in the sense that I always felt like I have a responsibility to maybe not achieve like the greatest good for the greatest number, because at some point it's like classical mechanics, it sort of breaks down at extremes. But for the most part, do a lot of good for a lot of people in whatever way possible. That intuition structure is still with me. And so I feel like a pretty strong obligation to have a large effect on people's lives in a positive way.
Toke Talk number 9. Mari, are there any inflection points you found in your life where it felt almost like a mistake at the time, but ended up being a very good decision that you made?
Ironically, studying biology was an inflection point at one point in my life. I was a high school student, I have this big brother, he's an organic chemist. Breaking Bad is out, that's chemistry. Like, oh my god, I want to make meth and do chemistry stuff. But I applied to a couple chemistry labs that were local, and all of them were like, you don't have the background in this and that. So I ended up working at a biology lab, a biophysics lab. And that was probably one of the most formative experiences of my life. I mean, it molded me into wanting to study biological engineering until I realized the harsh realities. Maybe I'm a little jaded. I used to be really into biology. Now it's just like, things can be cool, things can be interesting, but I'm not like, oh my god, like this is mind-blowing. I don't know what my next adventure is. I worked at a lab doing stuff with the nervous system, the periphery, so like your limbs and stuff. Hours were long, the pay was horrible. I had an introspective moment. I looked around at everyone else who was in my lab, and I was like, oh my god, everyone's miserable. And this is supposed to be the place to be. Nobody was particularly elated to be here. Only the people that had just started. They were not jaded yet. But I was like, maybe this is not the career for me anymore. So yeah, what was once like a passion project, which was working in this biology lab, became, almost a nightmare when I was an undergrad.
What's your dream job?
My dream job?
You have $1 million in a suitcase. What's your dream job?
My dream job would be a purely research position. Basically like a postdoc, but paid better. Research scientist at like OpenAI or DeepMind, or somewhere like the Shaw Research, the people who do bio like molecule simulation. Oh, so you know who they are. So I was in their offices earlier this year and I was completely blown away. It's like working in academia in a research lab, but being paid like a hedge fund quant. It's a different paradigm. That place is amazing. I would work there in a heartbeat.
Maybe that's your next internship. Toke Talk number 10. Nanaki, what's a value you hold that you don't think many other people hold?
Self-awareness. It's really important to me to know who I am. Personality is like who I affect, like how I affect them. Just being aware of my space in the world. I think a lot of people, especially in like the areas I work in, tend to not be very self-aware, and especially this summer, I've seen that it can be really like not conducive to a healthy work environment.
How so?
This summer, I dealt with some stuff with like masculine, feminine issues, like on a tech team, where I just like wasn't being given the respect I should have been given. And it was really lonely. Like our team was just being kind of exclusive at one point.
What is one thing not many people know about you that would come as a surprise?
I don't hate anyone. I really just don't have any active negative feelings towards anyone, but I get really like defensive and protective of like myself and people I care about. I think that kind of gives people the wrong impression.
You mentioned that you don't hate anyone. What would hate be to you?
Hate is like the manifestation of negative feeling towards a person. The thoughts I have of them are intensely negative. I feel like that requires a lot of effort and dedication of resources of your time and values to really put in that negative emotion to someone.
Have you ever hated anyone before?
One of the things I deal with like as an issue is guilt. There could have been times when I hated someone, tend to blame myself for it. So in the end, I put a lot more hatred on myself than anyone else.
And what are some techniques you use to avoid these feelings?
I think I definitely used to be more susceptible to being reactionary, but as I've gotten older, I just realized that there's no point in putting that much time into anything that's not going to be even the neutral experience. It's going to be actively negative. So I really make an effort not to pick fights.
You said this has been a big month of change. What's changed?
I'm really growing really rapidly. Like, especially this whole summer has been such a big time of change. I don't really know where I am at this point. I don't know how I would act differently like a month ago, and I don't know how I would act differently 3 years ago to anything. It's interesting because I think all y'all and other interns have only seen me this way, and I'm trying to figure out like who are you, girl?
Toke Talk number 11. Nathan.
I like being able to hang out with people I know. It allows me to be a little more goofy, which is something I definitely appreciate because I feel like in general, having fun by being goofy and finding the strangeness of things is kind of my way of looking at the world.
What's one goofy thing you've noticed about yourself that not a lot of people know? So not Danger Man Dan.
No, obviously not Danger Man. The thing a lot of people don't get is the fact that, like, when I'm goofy or even when I'm just doing comedy, it can often be interpreted as just me being silly and could be interpreted as just me being weird or me looking for attention. Maybe there's a truth to that, but at the same time, a lot of it is just because I feel like, in general, people take themselves too seriously in any scenario, and I think I made a decision at some point to just not do that, just to never take myself too seriously. Everyone does, I do, from time to time, and loosening up and just finding the joy and humor and silliness is a way to avoid that.
What brings you joy in acting, specifically?
I think it's exactly that. It's looking for the joy in it. I feel like, especially with comedy, a lot of people do comedy because they're sad, and it's their way of dealing with things. I try to find the joy in things and reflect that in my work. I find joy in acting because it's a process of looking for joy in the world, if that makes sense. But I've heard that there's two ways to look at the world. You can either look at the world as a beautiful place where bad things occasionally happen, or a bad place where good things occasionally happen. I lean towards more of it's a bad place where good things can happen, which is kind of a shitty outlook, which is why I try to find, like, the joy in things. It means you're not let down by things, but at the same time, you can't experience hope in the same way that someone can who expects good things, and I think there's a problem with that too. There's no good way to look at the world from either perspective. But that's exactly why, through my work, both here at GoDaddy and my work as an actor, it's about finding the things that are good. Because even if there are only good things that happen occasionally in a world of bad things, the world is a big place. There's a lot of good that goes on, and I like to try to find that.
Toke Talk number 12. Pro. What's a trait or characteristic you have that not many people know about you?
I remember interactions very well. If we are talking about something, even if it was a very trivial thing, I have a very good memory of it. I can only do that when I'm in front of that person. So if I'm sitting with you and if I had a memory with you months ago, I can immediately recollect what happened. Even if you don't remember it, I'd remember it.
Is there a pathway from which you recall these memories, or is it just the moment you look in their face?
If I'm talking to you and I'm thinking about about something that we relate to. That triggers a memory that might have happened way before.
Is it only one-on-one?
I could have a group memory as well.
Did you do anything to develop that skill?
I wasn't born with it. Or at least I've been noticing this fairly late in my life.
Can you give us an example of a time it was very useful to have this skill?
That would happen a lot with one of my friends. He would say things to me, some random incidences. Then months later, years later, he would talk about something and he would give me a situation out of context because he likes to talk in a cryptic fashion. And then I would get the context immediately because I know what he's talking about. But he doesn't know that he has told me the context years ago. It helps for clearer conversations. Can get awkward a little bit.
Why? Why does it get awkward?
Because people sometimes want to hide stuff from you, even though they don't remember that they've already said that. It happened a lot with my ex-girlfriend. A lot. Part of the reason we broke up, in fact, what she couldn't put together was the fact that I knew all of these little things that would make me understand that what she's saying is a lie. I would remember every detail and I'm like, this doesn't make sense because I remember this, I remember this, I remember this. And if these three things happen, the fourth thing that you're saying cannot happen. No, this is what happened. I'm like, okay, sure. It's fine.
Sounds frustrating.
Yeah, I'm sort of living by it now. It doesn't matter. One thing I've learned is you can't trust other people's memories.
Toke Talk number 13, Srihari. Do you ever miss India?
I certainly miss Indian culture and the noise on the roads.
What most frequently do you reminisce about when in India?
Food. I'm a vegetarian. In India, it is very easy to be vegetarian because there are vegetarian hotels and dishes all around. And over here, food has same varieties there in India, but Indian food is made more with spices. If you have grown up being used to Indian spices for like 20 years, it is very difficult to get used to vegetarian food here.
What dish do you miss the most?
Biryani. Closest thing to that here is rice.
What is biryani?
Biryani is a dish made from rice. The rice variant is slightly different from what you get as rice here. It is this rice called basmati rice. It's actually multicolored. So it's a little yellowish, a little orange, a little red with vegetables all around. It is basically a set of vegetables with Indian spices.
What spices are most predominant in biryani?
There are a lot of Indian spices that you use for different dishes. The most popular ones are chili powder, turmeric powder. There's one called garam masala that is the secret to every dish that I make. The way things are, they have spices for every different dish that you make, as in the things made in different proportions. So they have something called a biryani masala, which is something that you use specifically for biryanis.
What's a cherished childhood memory you have?
Cricket in India. Every Indian would grow up at least watching cricket matches or playing cricket, and I was one who did both. I played since I was 8 or 9 years old.
What position?
I was an opening batsman and a fast bowler. I opened the batting for my school, but towards the end, as in before I came for my masters, I more or less became just a bowler. It's like the equivalent of a pitcher in baseball. The only difference between baseball and cricket though is pitcher throws the ball full at the batsman. In cricket, he's allowed to take a run up and then bowl it, and he's allowed to bounce the ball. He's allowed to do a lot of other things. As in, there are different skills that are required for baseball and different skills that are required for cricket. Irrespective of which part of the world I am, I make it a point to follow what is happening everywhere in cricket.
Toke Talk number 14, Sam. Is there anything that not a lot of people know about you?
It took me a very, very long time to learn how to be comfortable in my own skin and how to be comfortable with who I am rather than what I think people want me to be. Around sophomore, junior year of college is really when I started fitting into my own.
Were there any formative experiences that sped up that transition from this discomfort in your own skin to just being more authentic?
I was in a fraternity for my first year of college. I thought that's what I wanted, and I kept thinking, fake it till you make it, but it was not me whatsoever, and I was so disillusioned by the whole thing. I really started asking myself, what do I want from life? What do I want from college? What kind of experiences do I want? What kind of friend groups do I want? Sophomore year, I made a decision to really find myself, find a more solid friend group, one that I click with rather than I think I would want to click with. It made me learn how to be more humble and aware of my surroundings, I think.
You rapidly changed as a person. Are there any major events that were huge inflection points in your worldview?
One of the biggest reality checks I've had was getting my offer for GoDaddy, I no longer feel comfortable talking about my job with some of my friends from back home who were not as lucky. I'm really, for the first time, starting to notice contrasts between paths that we've all gone in. Being in this position that I am now, having security for my future and knowing that I'm going to be relatively well taken care of. You're not used to the changes that it accustoms. You can't talk about certain stuff anymore. You have to act more classy. You have to be more humble. I'm still a man-child. If I look mature, if I look like an adult, that's an illusion that I want to dispel right now. It's difficult trying to act like an adult when I absolutely do not feel like an adult.
What is it to be a man for you?
My definition of being a man is being able to take care of yourself independently and also know how to take care of others as well as yourself in foreign situations. If you are well versed and feel confident enough in being in different situations that you're unfamiliar with and uncomfortable with, it's not even necessarily like being a macho thing, you know? You can be a very manly man, be small, you can be short, you can be fat, you can be tall, you can be whatever. It doesn't matter. It's all about how you conduct yourself and what kind of image people have of you. Are you someone that's reliable? Are you someone that's dependable? Do people go to you when something goes wrong? Or are you the kind of person that you're fun to hang out with, but when shit hits the fan, you're not the first person that people think of, or even the second or the third, to ask for help?
Toke Talk number 15, the one and only Trish Hoy. Can you talk about an awesome music experience you had, like your favorite concert or a really nice memory you had in college with your friends doing something like that?
Good question, especially since I feel like I've bonded with a lot of my friends at music festivals, at concerts, things like that, just because I love music, and usually the people I have around me that are very close to me also very much love music or have the same music taste as me, or can at least appreciate it. One of the really cool music festivals that I went to was summer after my senior year. I went to Outside Lands, and it was a really big deal that year because it was my last summer with everyone from my high school going to Outside Lands. And if you grow up in San Francisco, you know that it's a big deal who you're going with, especially your first time. Everyone will be like, who are you going to Outside Lands with? And like legit, my entire high school would meet up at one spot. And that's one of the first times you'd see certain people over the summer, or you'd look forward to like, oh my God, I'm going to see this person at Outside Lands when you haven't seen them all summer. Summer after senior year was my last year, like with my high school people, especially since everyone had agreed to go. It's one of those moments where like you just kind of know it's never going to be like this again. And so you're just kind of soaking it all in just because you're never going to be at that age. You're never going to be as close to the people you're with. But it was really special that at the time, all of us got together. And I think it was really cool when All My Friends by Snake Hips was playing live. And I was literally with everyone from my high school, and we were all singing it together. We were just all singing the same song, like doing the same thing. And I felt like we all knew. Like we all knew that there wouldn't really be another time when we'd be together like this. I mean, there's literally people that I was dancing with and singing with and like hanging out with that weekend that I haven't seen since. I feel like it's really special to bond with people at them. I'm very much a experience-based person when I'm trying to invest in things. I love going on trips or going to music festivals more than things.
Toke Talk number 16, Yang. What for you would be living a fulfilling life?
There are two things. I feel there are things you do to make a living, and there are things you do to make life worth living. And I feel like a fulfilling life is being able to find something that intersects with both. I've been reading this book by Ray Dalio, and one of his principles is really two things. What do you want to do, and what is true? What he's trying to say is this. You want to do something, and you also need to know what's true in the world. Once you know both of that, then you're able to find out a way to actually go for whatever you're trying to do.
Was there a formative experience you had that made you more pragmatic?
I wouldn't say that was an inflection point per se. It was a realization that was kind of growing within me. When it comes to engineers, we tend to be more on the pragmatic side. For someone like myself, I've always had like a much more broader picture of what I want to do. It can't just be working at this place, working in this job. This is a stepping stone to something greater. That something greater right now, it's always changing because as you experience more, you want to do different things. Being able to like identify that, especially when you like meet all these different people, I think that was the start where I started exploring my mind and be like, let's experience different things and see if I change my mind. I've gone to different places, I've got to meet different people and do all these things that I would say I wasn't always comfortable with.
What's your greatest fear in life?
My greatest fear is to go through life with a passing. It's very easy to fall into this idea that life is this certain thing that people just do. For example, people say finish K-12, go to college, get your degree, and find a job, marry someone, buy a nice house in a nice location, and then retire with a nice 401k. In some way, that's like the American dream, which I find funny. And that to me is my biggest fear. I would absolutely not want to live a mediocre life. I actually genuinely believe that every single person is capable of finding something that they're really great at and to pursue that. Now, obviously, the thing that stops them is comfort. When you're comfortable with something, when you feel like you're at home and like you're able to enjoy life, especially when you get a job for the first time and suddenly you have a source of income, not worrying about college debt, you sink into that nice comfort like, wow, okay, this is a good life. I don't have a lot of things to worry about. For me personally, I feel that there's so many other things that we have yet not discovered about ourselves or what we might be good at. And so if I am not able or willing to find all these different paths in life, that would be a really big fear for me.
I'm all out of Toke Talks. Have a wonderful week, and goodbye, Group B.